welcome to our QPR Season Preview show ahead of 2022 to 23. Excitement's in the air ahead of the new campaign, and we know with QPR that will probably only last a few days, so let's enjoy it while we can. If you're watching this after Blackburn, it's probably already long since evaporated, to be honest. But while we've got the chance, let's preview the season. I'm James, and I'm joined by Sam and Matthew. We're going to look back at QPR's pre-season campaign and then look ahead to the new season. Do you want to say before we begin that we've got 3 free prediction games that you can join in our forum? They last all season, they're easy to enter, you can win a QPR shirt. Let's get as many people involved as we can. There'll be some links in the description that you can use to take you straight to them. And let's start by looking back at pre-season. We've had 5 games with varying degrees of quality of opposition and varying degrees of result as well. We couldn't quite make it a second consecutive unbeaten pre-season. We ended up with 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 defeat against Crystal Palace. Sam, you were actually on tour with the R's in Germany. How was that experience for you?
Lovely. It was lovely. The very nice place out there. It surprised me. I think a lot of R's fans were disappointed by the town of Zwickau. It wasn't a particularly what's the word? I don't think you'd go there if it wasn't for QPR. But no, it was lovely. It was lovely. Lots of cheap pints.
Nice.
interesting bunch of fans. It was a very good tour. It was a very good tour, and yeah, it's great to see so many people out there. I think there was probably a couple of hundred for the or just over 100 for the Halle game, but the Zwickau one was we were a bit thin on the ground, but it's great to see so many people, and I thought I was happy with the football we played, to be honest.
Did you catch the matches, Matthew, over pre-season? Have you seen any of them?
Yeah, I managed to watch about 4 of them. Again, I was impressed with the style of football. I think it's very quick. I think Chair is the orchestrator of it all. I like his pace in behind and the fact that I know Tyler Roberts is injured now, but I think he did great against Crawley. Lyndon Dykes as well. I think he's a target man in that formation, and overall I think our football was great. In terms of the level of opposition, Crystal Palace was the main test. I think in that game we could see sort of the level that we have to get to in the future, but in terms of the level of the other matches, I think we want higher opposition, but it is what it is, and some nice results there, some nice goals as well included. So overall, decent football in the end.
Sam, any concerns from the Palace match?
I think it was. I mean, the key with these things is to not read too much into them. But if you were to pick out some problems, I think it would be, as Beale said, the final third, because I think the 3 goals Palace scored, one of them was who outside the area. It's Zaha screamer and a slightly dubious penalty, but we were a bit sort of toothless going forwards. We which felt a little bit familiar from some of the patchy spots of, well, not even patchy, just terrible spots of the second half of last season, not being able to string 2 passes together in the final third. But I think I'm not too concerned. I think how teams look in pre-season is meaningless. I mean, we played Zwickau and Halle, and Halle looked 10 times the team that Zwickau were when we played them, and actually yesterday Zwickau beat Halle 3-2 in the first opening game of the season. So just goes to show that it's don't read too much into these things. But the attack, tiny signs of concern, but
yeah, I suppose we've got Willock though, haven't we? He's the one that can unlock the door like no one else can. Once we get him back, you've got Roberts as well, and potentially 1 or 2 loan signings. it changes the whole scene of it, doesn't it? My concern from pre-season is the fact that we're looking brilliant. We make 3 or 4 changes, and then we can go from 3-0 to 3-3. We can be beating Wealdstone 6-0. Second half, it was effectively only 2-2 with the second string. We look like we've got a very competitive first 11 and a few beyond that. But once you get into a few injuries, I think we could be in the same situation as last season. We just don't seem to have the strength in depth. And that is a concern. To be 3-0 up on Crawley, change the team, and it's 3-3 within 20 minutes. That's concerning. I know it's only pre-season, but it to me, it is a big reflection of what happened at the end of last season. Once we haven't got a few key men available to us, we don't look the same at all. And hopefully we can get a bit more depth over the next 5 weeks of the transfer window. But for the start of the season, maybe in the league it won't matter so much because he won't make so many changes. But that was my only concern with pre-season as a whole. Touching on the signings, we actually let 12 players go who had made a league appearance for QPR last season. We've effectively brought in 4 players as we're talking right now. So there's 12 gone, only 4 in. You've effectively got Wallace gone, Pal in, Barbe gone, Jake Clark-Salter. You could argue now that we've got Richards for Ball, and then Roberts is either Austin or Gray maybe. But it still means we haven't really replaced our DeBaggio and then one of Austin and Gray. So the squad does look a little light in a few areas, as I think everyone knows. Where do we need to replace Matthew? Do you think where do we need to get a few more in?
2 main positions is right back, definitely. I thought Osman did a pretty decent job against Crystal Palace, but for the long haul, I think we need an out-and-out right back that can play every single week. Touch wood, he doesn't get injured early on in the season. But a good solid right back that can sort of have Kenneth Powell's pace to get up and down. And a few times in pre-season, especially Kenneth Powell, he will come up and attack, and then when it came to a counter-attack, will be sort of isolated defensively. So we need sort of a right back that can trap back as well as attack as well. And a striker, as we've needed for the last couple of years, just a striker that we can rely on, really. We tend to not have shots outside the box. We tend to very similar to Warburton's style of play, really, where we build around the box and looking for that sort of poacher, that sort of finisher that we need. Unfortunately, it didn't suit Charlie Austin's pace and style of play that he'd like to. But if we can get similar to Andre Gray, someone that's on low wages possibly, but a reliable striker as well that we can possibly get up to 10 goals, 10 plus goals at least. That should help us through the season.
Yeah, Sam, I mean, I've just said there, the people who've gone, the people who've come. Do you think the squad's better now than it was at the end of last season, or have we actually weakened the squad?
I think from a strength and depth perspective, I think you'd have to say it is weakened. As you said, there's in terms of just pure numbers really. Fullbacks are just looking. It's not looking top of the championship level. We got Kenneth Powell. Can Nico come in and do a job for 10-15 games if Powell gets injured? I think maybe Beale would have his doubts about that. And I think right back we need 1 if not 2 more players. But I think that there are areas where we'll be stronger. I think there's been a lot of focus on Ilias coming back better than ever. And if that really is the case, and it certainly has looked that way during pre-season, I think we're in for a real treat, and that could be bigger than people. Well, and I think people realise how big that could be, especially with Willett coming back into the frame. But yeah, I think fullbacks we need to stack them up, and then then I think you could make a case that we're as strong, if not stronger, than last season, but not for now.
Yeah, it is hard because even when you're trying to predict the league as a whole, because you know there's 5 weeks of transfer window still to go, some of the teams are going to look massively different by the time that transfer window closes. And it feels even with us that you know we're not going to have the same team now that it is in a couple of weeks' time. And that's why it's strange with the season starting earlier. That can't be doing anybody any favours really, because it wouldn't normally be starting now, and teams aren't probably as settled as they would like to be. You both actually touched on the next point we're going to talk about is the tactics of Michael Beale. You both kind of mentioned it already. Now, something I've felt over pre-season is that if you'd been in a coma for 6 months and you went to the Crystal Palace match, I don't feel like, apart from the formation, you'd have been looking down at the dugout to see, is Mark Warburton still the manager? Because it all feels to me very similar. And I know that's probably what they want, but I don't feel like I still feel it still can get a little bit slow once we get to the final third. Still always trying to find maybe a too precise pass, not enough crosses into the box for Lyndon Dykes. And I know that was Crystal Palace, but have you noticed a difference at all, Matt?
Yeah, I thought the build-up was really slow against Crystal Palace. I know the opposition is different and they're going to have a good formation behind them. But yeah, I thought our transition was a bit slow at times, especially on the counter-attack. At times we left Osman Kakai too upfield, and it was between Zaha and Rob Dickie, and at times Zaha would just put him on toast. At times we just lacked that final pass, and it's just really slow. And there were times where we did put crosses in the box, but Dykes was just too isolated. I think at times he needs sort of a partner in games where he just can feed off with, and just a runner in behind really. I think that would do him a lot. But when he's in the box, he can be isolated at times and outstrength. So yeah, I think we're just too slow. We just need to speed it up. And like Michael Beale said, he will, use more attackers and use fast play. But at the moment, I think it's still in transition. But hopefully, we'll see that in the early months of the season.
What about you, Sanji? Have you felt you've seen things that are different?
I like the way he's using Sam Field to really make the midfield an engine room of progressing the ball from defence into attack. And I think the way he's particularly in the Zwickau game, the way he had Stefan Johansson coming a little bit closer to the centre backs, a little bit deeper. I thought we looked like we were progressing the ball down the middle a little bit better than we were at times last season. But I mean, if you're looking for big differences, we're sort of wasting our time, because stylistically it has looked very similar. But to see how that transfers into a competitive game, when it comes to what I'm interested to see is when it comes to the nitty-gritty parts of game management, 1-0 leads away from home, 20 minutes left. I think that's when we might see some bigger differences. But I'm liking the signs I'm seeing from the transition to a 3-man midfield and how he's utilising that and what he's doing with that. I think I'm interested to see how that goes, especially with the addition of Taylor Richards.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up the Johansson, because that was actually going to be the next question, was about him sitting deeper. My concern with that is we know he's not going to be able to play 3 games a week, the midweek matches, etc. Who does that role when Johansson can't?
I think Field can do it. He doesn't take the ball on the half turn as much. He doesn't look to immediate ball progression and forwards passing isn't his number one strength. Really not having a go at him, much like Beale. I love Sam Field. I think Dazelle is the obvious one, but Dazelle being at the heart of the midfield worries me, because I think he's not quite there off the ball yet. I think off the ball his offering is very limited, and but he does have this sort of this composure and passing range, and that's the closest thing in the squad that I can see.
Yeah, I don't think Dazelle's got the defensive side of the game, has he, to be the player who sits. He doesn't. He's not yet, like you're saying, getting stuck in enough. He can go drifting out of games when we're not on top of games and stuff. So I still think there's a good player in there, but he seems to have a lot that he still needs to work on. Your thoughts, Matthew, on Johansson sitting deeper and where the Field? I'm just going to say, because it feels to me it's a little bit counterintuitive to say to Field, we're going to change your role this season and we're going to have you pushing a bit further forward. But every time Stefan can't play, you've now got to come back and do this job again. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's Johansson's play will be reliable for us really throughout the season. I think with him dropping deep, yeah, he can dictate play more. And whenever we're in trouble defensively, it's all about him having the pace. I don't think he's been blessed with pace, but he has that experience in there. And if he's sort of adapting to being quite deep, then I think he can do that with a partner alongside him. Yeah, I agree with Dazelle. I think he's not great defensively. I like him further up the pitch. There were a few times last season where he would dictate play and do some great passing. For example, he did one great assist to Andre Gray, and that's where you want him really to sort of find that key pass, and where teams have a low block, he can sort of find that pass at times. So, but defensively, he's not great. And Sam Field, he can drop in at times. It's questionable Johansson can finish 90 minutes twice a week, let alone three days a week. So Sam Field can sort of drop in that position if Johansson goes off, and sort of we sort of bed in Taylor Richards slowly. Then Sam Field can do that part of the game for 20 minutes, 10 minutes. If it comes to maybe that 1-0 with 8 minutes gone, we need to hang on. I think he has that experience to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting with Johansson as well, because a lot of people on our forum have said over the time that Johansson was at his best when he was on loan, playing further forward. And if you looked at some of his goals he scored when he was on loan, he was where he was intercepting off the other team on the edge of the box, and he was pressing high, and he could then make key passes and important through balls and stuff. Whereas we've got to trust what Beale's doing, but he seemed to have come in and said, no, you're going to be the person who sits deeper. So it's kind of against what a lot of the fans would have said is his best role. But I guess we'll see what happens, and they might change it once they have different players available and so on. Let's have a look at the Championship in general then, as we preview the season. Obviously going to be a strange season with the World Cup break right in the middle of it. Whether that's going to help some teams who are struggling, or maybe hinder teams if they're doing well because they've won a good run, and then we've got a break for 5 or 6 weeks, and then obviously coming back it's Christmas and the games will come thick and fast. Very, very different it's going to be this campaign. Who are the teams you face, Sam? First off,
I think I don't want to say just all the relegated sides, and I might actually try to avoid mentioning them other than just quickly saying, I think the way that in recent years they've been able to keep their key players, so we may well have a season of Dwight McNeil, Ismail Assad, Emmanuel Dennis, all in the Championship, which is ridiculous and in my opinion shouldn't really be happening. But outside of that, I think West Brom have made some very good moves of people. Last season they couldn't really do it in the final third, and they've picked up 2 players on free transfers who can certainly do it in the final third, and they're not strikers, but Jed Wallace and John Swift, I think, in the same team for West Brom under Steve Bruce, who maybe a lot of people, especially from his time at Newcastle, don't rate too highly, but is definitely a safe pair of hands. I think the combination of a safe pair of hands and an attack with Jed Wallace, Carlin Grant, Daryl DK, and John Swift, I think they're going to be very dangerous, and they were defensively sound last season. So I'd tip them to do quite well.
Matthew?
Yeah, I tend to agree. West Brom will be the favourites for me. The likes of John Swift, I think he deserved a move, maybe deserved a chance to be in the Premier League. If he was been at Reading for many years, and he was always a standout player for Reading. Every single game I watched him, he'd always play well against us. Typical enough. And then and some of the attacking players they have is great. And with Steve Bruce in charge, he's got promoted before with Hull City in the past, so he knows the Championship well. He tends to use attacking players really well, and sometimes in the Championship you have teams that score many goals and just seem to outscore everyone and tend to get promoted. If you see for them last season, they outscored everyone. They scored the record goals. So especially the teams that got relegated, if they still have their attacking players still available, then they'll always be up there. I'll say one team that could be a surprise. It could be Preston. I felt they ended last season pretty well, and they've made some pretty decent signings. So Preston have always been sort of mid-table in the Championship, but with Ryan Lowe in charge, you just never know, and they made some good, decent signings that could do well in the Championship. So they could be my sort of surprise package, if you like.
Yeah, good call. The only team I'd add is not really a surprise package would be Middlesbrough. I think with Chris Wilder, they were actually, I remember I probably made a fool of myself, might be making a fool of myself again here, but on the forum after that, we played Middlesbrough at home in February. I put they're going to finish in the top two because even though we got a 2-2 draw, they were outstanding. And I thought they were going to just fly through the rest of the season. They were getting some good wins in the FA Cup, but they kind of still fell away a little bit. But he's the type of manager who's going to work out why that happened, correct it. He's obviously got rid of Joel Lumley and the Grant Halls of this world. And I think Middlesbrough are going to be up there. Sheffield United as well, the promoted teams, like you say, Preston, West Brom. And when you say it like that, it's going to be tricky for any other teams to get in the mix. But like we saw last season, Huddersfield and Luton were in there. It's never a dead certain thing. And that's the next question. It's all about us, QPR, our 8th consecutive season at this level. We finished 11 last season. And I'll start with you, Matthew. Do you think higher or lower than 11th last season for QPR?
I'm going to say higher, but by one position, I think. I'll say 10th. I just feel this season will be a season of transition. I think he'll use young players a lot throughout, and a lot of loan players will hopefully eventually come in towards the end of the transfer window, hopefully. But again, I still think the season transition is going to be quite difficult in the first couple of matches, especially the first 2 months, and then maybe towards the middle of the season, we could see some development there, a few good results. With the break during the middle of the season, you're going to have loads of games Saturday midweek. I think, especially the board of directors, they have to think about strength and depth right now. If they're looking about the whole season, we need to have players for that sort of period. Then we can't rely on players like Nico Hammerleinen and Osman Kaka. I don't think they'll be sort of up for it in terms of that intensity of the Championship. So, yeah, I'm going to say 10th for the time being. But if we get the necessary signings that we need, then we could get higher than that.
Sam, higher or lower than 11th?
I'm just gonna say provisionally lower because I'm getting increasingly worried about this the transfer window, that we're the sort of very bizarre pursuit of Danny McNamara from Millwall. I'm worrying is distracting us from the sort of quantity of signings that we need to make, and I think it won't be much lower because I think I think we've got certain stars in attack whose quality guarantees that any team will finish above about 16th or 17th, and I think they're so good that I don't really even need to say who they are. And I think, but I just think there's going to be an adjustment period. There's going to be areas of weakness in our squad that are possibly highlighted, particularly fullback areas. And I think it's not going to be a negative season. Finding a balance in midfield with your likes of Amos, Richards, Dazelle, Johansson, Field, finding the way to get them all into midfield. Maybe Cher moves into midfield. Who knows what will happen? But I think there's going to be lots of adjustment, lots of experimentation, and I think it seems that it will be a mid-table season. And maybe we get some stronger players in, some reliable players, some players who will really see us through and see us hit a groove earlier than I'm currently expecting. But provisionally, I'd say 13th, 14th, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're going to be anywhere too much lower than that, but I just, like I kind of said at the start, I worry about us with injuries. We only need a few key injuries to key players, and we're going to be struggling. And at the moment, I worry about us putting the ball in the back of the net. As much as people didn't like Andre Gray, I wasn't a big fan. He was our top scorer, and he's gone. We've lost our person with the most appearances last season in Barbe, so we lost some experience from the squad. And like you just said, brilliant point. It's going to be a few months of him trying players in this position. Okay, that didn't work. Let's now next week try him here. We've obviously had the whole pre-season without somebody like Luke Amos, who could be brilliant in this formation, breaking through from midfield. So we'll have to experiment with that. I just hope the club give him time. If we only get one win from the first month, I hope people aren't going, oh, what do we do, getting rid of Warburton. Everyone just needs to stay calm, don't they? And give him the time to work it out. It's his first job, and just keep calm. But overall, I think we are going to be somewhere, like you said, 13th, 14th. If everybody stays fit, we get some good signings in. There's no reason we can't be trying to push towards the top six. But I think the teams who are going to be at the top, it's going to be hard to break into that group this season. There's a few teams who look very, very strong. And I think last year, there was a point where we could have gone second in February with a win. To get up there this season would be very tricky with the teams that are there. But then again, we were probably saying the same thing this time last year, and it never works out sometimes how you expect. We'll see. But yeah, I'd go lower than 11th as it stands. So let's look ahead to the first game. Blackburn Rovers, Ewood Park, somewhere we've not won since 1999. 11 trips there since, and we've picked up 2 draws, so it doesn't bode well. The last time we played them on the first game of the season at Ewood Park, they were the reigning Premier League champions, and we ended the season relegated. So hopefully we don't end up with that happening again. We've had Ian Holloway, Neil Warnock, Mark Hughes, Harry Redknapp, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Ian Holloway again, Steve McLaren, and Mark Warburton 3 times all go to Ewood Park and fail to win. Sam, can Michael Beale be the man to win that one?
I'd like to think he would be, and I think with the Avanti West Coast travel disruptions, I think and maybe a lot of us not being able to make it there, myself included, I think if it's going to happen at any time, it will probably happen when there's about 200 of us whose trains have been cancelled. But I think it's a real wild card game, and it is what I will say. So because we've both got new managers, and John Thomason was at one point quite high up on our list, on the odds for a QPR job. So and I think they've obviously kept Brereton Diaz. They signed Callum Britton from Barnsley recently, which think is a good signing, and don't want to point out the obvious there that they did just sign a right back from a relegated side, but I think it's going to be very difficult. I think there'll be a sort of positive atmosphere around Blackburn for the time being, at least, and I think. But as I said, anything can happen when it's two brand new managers. But I'm quite reserved with my optimism.
Matthew, your thoughts?
Yeah, just touch on the point that he said. I think it's going to be an interesting one. Two new managers, two managers that want to sort of get off a positive start with their style of play. But with Blackburn, they tend to stop that style of play whenever we come there. Our previous visit there, we hardly attacked, really. We weren't very defensive, but we always seem to start slow as well at Blackburn. But first day of the season, you have to keen to impress. You want to do that. And like I said, both managers we want to get off to a great start. Hopefully all our players will be fit. Michael Beale was saying Chris Willock might be back and all the others. So as long as they're fit, and it's going to be quite arguably if they're going to be 100% fit. But if we can sort of get them on at some point during the match, then that could be key if we're ever struggling. In terms of attacking players, I think Blackburn have more sort of experience. Sort of Tyler Roberts and Richards, etc. They're quite new in terms of bedding in our new style of play and new teammates. So they have Gallagher and they still have Diaz. So it will be difficult, but I think we'll scrape a draw. But on the first day of the season, I think you're going to get some weird results.
Yeah, I don't want to go all Harry Redknapp, but I agree with Sam. It's a bit of a bonus game because if you look at our record there, if we can score, he's doing well compared to what we've done in the past. So he's kind of got a free pass because everyone is kind of going there. I know I'm traveling there for the X amount of times, knowing we're probably going to lose. So if we can get something, he's doing well. He's on a high, and if we do lose, I don't think he's going to get any criticism, which is a good thing. Because everyone's just going to go, well, we always lose at Blackburn anyway. I think you've got a good point as well there, Matthew, about if we can just get Willock on the bench, I think that would create some positivity as well, because the fans, I know, would be sat there thinking, I know I would be, right, even if we're 1-0 down, we can get Willock on with 70 minutes. He is such an important player for us. I'd like to think my prediction would be that we can get a draw, because they're obviously in the same situation as us. They've got new players, new manager, new ideas. They're trying to bed in. So hopefully we can get just a positive result for me would be don't lose. If we can get a draw, and then we can get back to Loftus Road. And although we do have to face Middlesbrough, don't we, the week after, which is a horrible first home game for Beale. So what you saying to Matthew, a draw, yeah?
Yeah, a draw. It was great for draw.
Let's say a draw. 2-2.
Well, that's our predictions. Like I said at the start, everybody who's watching, get on our forum, do the prediction games. They take a minute to enter. You can do them all season long. You can win shirt. It's brilliant. You'll have fun, I promise you. We're looking at doing a preview show before each match throughout the season as well. So make sure you come back and watch that. Thank you to Matthew and Sam for their time and their opinions tonight on the show. I'll see you at Blackburn, and come on, you R's.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.